You're listening to Engaging Early Learners. I'm Rachel Glassman, special education teacher and resource creator. This podcast is your go-to for classroom strategies and teaching support that you can actually use. Whether you're on your way to work or heading home, I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 4. Today we are going to be talking about something that's really important to me and might be one of the most important episodes that I do, and we might have to talk about this more than once. Today we are going to be talking about teacher mental health and boundaries. In the last few episodes, we've really been focusing on classroom systems. In episode 1, we talked about, in general, classroom systems pretty in a basic way. Episode 2 was more of a deep dive into that and what that actually looks like in practice. And then in episode 3, again, one of my favorites, the power of the reset and what to do when things kind of fall apart and you need a class reset, a student reset, or a teacher reset. But today, I want to shift the focus a little bit and focus on us, the teachers, and kind of our life outside of school and outside of the classroom a little bit. Because you can have the best systems in the world, but if you are just completely burnt out, overwhelmed, running on empty, those systems are going to feel really hard to maintain or even just do in general. So today is all about you and us, me too. We are going to talk all about teacher mental health and boundaries. Now, my mental health and my boundaries are something that I talk a lot about on my Instagram. It's something that, besides just in my teaching life, in my personal life, those things are really important to me. I try to make decisions every day to respect my own boundaries and my own mental health. And I think as teachers, we have a really hard time doing that. So I want to specifically talk about our teacher mental health and boundaries. So let's get into it. Have you ever left school? And everyone's probably going to be shaking their head through this whole thing. Have you ever left school completely exhausted? Mentally, physically, emotionally, just drained, exhausted. And then you get home and you sit down for about 5-10 minutes, maybe even an hour. But then right after that, you feel guilty. You feel guilty for resting. You feel guilty for not doing work. You feel like maybe you should be doing more. Maybe you should be planning. Maybe you should be answering or checking emails. Maybe you should be catching up on something or trying to get ahead because we can never do that. You feel like you need to be doing something. And I know I have felt that way so many times. And if that has ever been you in any sort of way, then definitely this episode is for you. I remember there was a time and many years where I genuinely thought that being a good teacher meant always doing the most, the absolute most. I started my teaching career in preschool special ed, and I remember every single morning going to work at 6:30 in the morning. I would get there when the custodian was opening the doors, and school did not start until maybe 8:15, I don't even remember. But I was there at 6:30, prepping, answering emails, working on IEPs, working on lesson plans, preparing things in the classroom. I was also then staying really late as well. It was not just one or the other, it was both. I was staying really late. I felt like, this was pre-COVID where things weren't as much on the computer. Everything was, in front of you, and especially teaching in a preschool special education class, a lot of things needed to be physically prepped, physically made or moved around or laminated, Velcroed, whatever around the room. And I stayed until it was dark out almost every single day doing those things. And I had people around me, my friends listening to this are going to laugh. I had people around me telling me to, chill and do less and, you can come to do it tomorrow. Or this isn't it so important right now. I heard all the things. And shout out to my friends that worked with me at that time because you all tried, but I did not listen. I was going in so early. I was staying late. I was then even bringing work home. I have pictures sitting on my couch with Cooper, laminating, cutting, Velcroing. I used to get my family involved helping. And I would be saying yes to all of the things that I didn't have capacity for. I would be doing all the things that I did not have the capacity for. And I just kept telling myself, like, this is part of it. This is what good teachers do. I love this job. I love these kids. I want to do the most for them. And that's just what I kept telling myself. The reality was, I was exhausted and not just tired, but like actually overstimulated, overwhelmed, and honestly just starting to feel like kind of resentful and burnt out. I, looking back now, and this is the first time I'm saying this out loud, I wonder if I wouldn't have, I wonder if I would have lasted longer teaching preschool special ed and not wanting to switch it up if I had better boundaries with work. Um, I don't know if that made sense, but I taught preschool special ed for 3 years. And I, after like 2 years, honestly, 2.5, I started to talk to my principal about wanting a change. I felt burnt out. I felt exhausted by it. And I thought it was the setting. I thought it was, the young kids. I don't know. But looking back and like having this conversation now, I wonder if I had had better boundaries and protected my mental health better during those 3 years, if I would have been able to do that specific job for longer. And believe me, like everything happens for a reason. And there's a reason I switched it up. I went to second grade and now, all these years later, I am where I am right now. I truly believe that. But looking back, I was so exhausted. I was so burnt out. I was always doing the most. And there's certain things I wouldn't change looking back. I love the way my room looked and how it felt in there, just like how I take pride in that still now. There's certain things I wouldn't have changed, but I think if I had known better and listened to the people around me, I would have been so much happier with setting realistic boundaries and protecting my mental health at the time. So that was a fun little reflection I just had with you guys. That was not planned. That just came to my head while I'm talking about this. But back to what I was saying about how I was so overstimulated, I was so overwhelmed, and honestly becoming resentful and burnt out. And I was in my 3rd year of teaching. My 3rd year of teaching, I was 25. Like, that's not okay. I definitely didn't like the feeling. I remember that. And that's why I started to have conversations about like what is next for me. But I loved teaching. I still love teaching. It's what I'm meant to do. I don't think I've said this yet on here, but since I was little, like 5, I always said I wanted to be a teacher. I was that person, that child in my basement with a huge whiteboard and pretend teacher books, making my sisters and cousins sit down and play school with me. And if they wouldn't, I would get upset. And they used to call me bossy boss. I was so bossy and I just wanted to teach and be their teacher. I have literally wanted to teach since I was that young. But now that I was in it and experiencing it, I was not setting proper boundaries to allow myself to love it and for it to be this like dream job I had always dreamed about. I was allowing the job to like eat me alive. That's how it feels looking back. It was like eating me alive. And I was running on empty. And I guess the turning point for me was a mix. I think definitely like, and this is a personal thing. For me, it was a mix of, I realized I was burnt out. I reached out to my principal. I advocated for myself. We talked about different options. I knew I didn't want to leave that school. We decided that me going into co-teaching would be in second grade would be a good choice. I can get into that at another time. But also at the same time, COVID hit. COVID hit March of my 3rd year teaching preschool special ed, my 3rd year teaching in general. And I think that COVID hitting and realizing all of the things that I can do at home from the comfort of my own couch or, from my computer, or how much I can simplify some of these systems I had going on, or some of the materials, I could simplify it because we all were forced to. During COVID, we were literally forced to simplify and kind of take a look at our mental health and how exhausted we were and all of those things. And if you worked through COVID, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I think that those things combined helped me realize all of this, realize how burnt out I was, realize that I, as a teacher, needed better systems for myself to set better boundaries. It wasn't that I needed to work harder. It was definitely that I just needed better boundaries and to protect my mental health. And I think 2020 for me was a turning point for that. And thank God, because I was only 3 years into teaching when I realized that. I wasn't 10 years in and first realizing that. So anyway, let's talk about what this actually looks like. Setting boundaries, protecting our mental health. So what does burnout actually look like? When we hear the word burnout, we usually think it just means being tired. You're just tired. But it's a lot more than that. Burnout looks and feels like this. You feel overstimulated all day, not just in your classroom. You feel overstimulated even when the classroom becomes empty. You go home and you still feel overstimulated because in the back of your head, you have all of these thoughts still going. You get irritated more easily. And again, not just in the classroom, not just at school. You're irritated at home. You're irritated with the people around you that are not even irritating you. You dread certain parts of the day. Again, not even in the classroom. You dread certain parts of the day that don't even have to do with school because you're so just overstimulated and irritated and burnt out that you just dread things that you should not be dreading. You also get more decision fatigue. And what does that mean? It's harder to make decisions. Decisions make you exhausted because even the small things start to feel super overwhelming for you. And sometimes you just feel checked out, just literally checked out, not just at school, but in your personal life as well. And the hard and super, super sad part is a lot of this becomes really normal in teaching. It becomes really normal. So if you are feeling any of these things, you are not a bad teacher, a bad person. You're also not the best teacher to ever exist because you feel all these things and you're doing all the things and you're so great and now you feel all these things. It's just normal. It's what this job sometimes does to us, but it doesn't make it okay. You start to think, well, yeah, of course I feel like this. It's just the job. And I'm a good teacher. I'm being a good teacher. I'm doing all the things. So of course I feel like this, but it doesn't have to be like this. It does not have to be like this. I promise. So boundaries feel really hard. And, thank God for therapy. Shout out to my therapist. I have worked on boundaries not only in my school life, but also in my personal life. But they're really, really hard. They're hard to understand, I think, although they sound like a simple concept. They're hard to understand, and they're also really, really hard to actually implement, and then even harder to follow through with. So why boundaries feel so hard? So if boundaries help, then why are they so hard to actually put into place, right? Well, first, the kids. We care so much about those kids. So setting boundaries might feel like we're letting them down, or we're letting our colleagues down, we're letting our admin down, our school, our community, our classroom, our aides in our classroom, and again, the kids. Second, boundaries can feel really hard because comparison. And we can all, sit here and say oh, we don't compare. We don't care what other teachers do. That's a normal part of life. In or out of the classroom. Comparison is a normal part of life. You are normal for comparing yourself. You see other teachers staying late, doing more, volunteering for all the things, and it makes you question what you should be doing, where really that has nothing to do with you. And third, guilt. Boundaries are really hard because of guilt. This feeling that if you're not constantly doing more, you are somehow not doing enough. But that mindset is exactly the formula that leads us to burning out. So how can we reframe boundaries so that they don't seem that hard? So boundaries do not make you a worse teacher. Boundaries do not make you a worse teacher. Do you see? I like to repeat myself when something is really important. They don't make you a worse teacher. They actually make you a much, much better teacher because you are more sustainable. You can last longer, bring that energy for longer. Boundaries make you a better teacher, a better person, a better partner, a better daughter, son, a better husband, a better wife, all the things. Boundaries make you a better person, okay? Because when you are constantly overextending yourself, your patience becomes lower, your energy becomes lower, your capacity just in general is lower. So boundaries are not about doing less for your students or doing less for your team, your grade level, your school, your admin. They're about protecting your ability to show up consistently for all of those things. Let's talk about some practical strategies, okay? We're going to make it super practical, and then we could always dive deeper at another time. Let's make this practical. Here are a few boundaries that you can actually start using, like right this second. You're not going to love this one if you don't already do it, and it can be really, really hard for you. But leave at contract time, once or twice a week. I'm not asking you to do it every day. From someone who literally used to go in at 6:30 and sometimes leave when the sun was going down, I am not going to sit here and tell you to leave at contract time every day. I know that is not a realistic shift. Let's take baby steps. Leave at contract time once or twice a week. Start with once. You don't have to do it every day. Start really, really small. Something else you can do. Stop checking emails at night. And again, you can start small with this. Maybe stop checking emails on the weekends if you do that. Stop checking emails at least one night a week. Tell yourself, Mondays, I'm not opening that inbox. Nothing in your inbox at 8 p.m. needs an immediate response. Now, I can sit here and be honest with you guys. I am someone that checks my school email at home. It is something that I have dove into and realized that it is something that helps me. I check it and I leave myself a note about how I want to respond, or I schedule an email to go out the next day. I check my school email at home. Not every day, but sometimes I check my school email at home. This is something for me that calms my body down and it helps me. That is not the same for everyone. For some people, it makes them super overwhelmed and stressed. For some weird reason, and I'm a weirdo, it does the opposite for me. If this is something that you think could help you, stop checking your email after school, even just one night a week. Something else, another boundary we can set. Set a clear stopping point. So instead of just, let me do one more thing, decide ahead of time when you're going to be done. Is it a certain time that you're going to stop? Is it after a certain task that you are going to stop? When are you going to stop? Because there's always going to be things. Can you make a immediate to-do list, a later to-do list, and a doesn't matter until next week to-do list? And then stop after you're done with your must-do right now list? Sure, try that. But at some point, you need a stopping point. You need to stop at some point, or it's never going to end. Something else, say no. Say no when you need to. This one is super hard, but it matters. Here are a few simple scripts I can give you to kind of help you start to say no. I can't take that on right now. Or I need to focus on my current responsibilities right now, and I can get back to you if I can make time for that. Or I don't have the capacity at the moment. Or to protect my mental health, I can't take that on at this time. There's lots of different ways you can workshop that to work for you, but you must start saying no to some things if you don't already. Try to say no to something this week, even if it's something really silly and small. Try to say no to something. You don't need to over-explain yourself. You do not need to justify it. Be simple and clear. Be simple and clear and do not try to over-explain yourself. You don't owe that to anybody. All right, the mindset shift. At the end of the day, this is really about how you're thinking about your role. You don't need to earn your rest. You don't need to prove that you're doing enough, and you don't need to sacrifice your mental health to be a good teacher. The goal is not to do everything. The goal is to do what actually matters and protect your energy so that you can keep doing it and showing up as your absolute best self for your students. If your mental health is not protected and you are not setting boundaries, you cannot show up as your best self. You just can't. So if you take anything from this episode, let it be this. You don't need to do more. You need to protect what you're already doing because you're doing a lot. You're doing a lot. You're a great teacher. You love those kids. You love the school you work at. You love what you do. You love your job. But you don't need to keep doing more and overextending yourself so that you eventually burn out. All right, guys. That is the end of this episode. I hope that you were able to get something out of it. If you could not tell, even by the length of this episode, it's now the longest episode to date. This is something that means a lot to me. My mental health and my boundaries are something that I have been working on for, I guess at this point, 6 years. And I think that I have made some pretty big gains in the area. And if I can help any of you guys in any sort of way with that, I want to. So I hope that this was really helpful, and we will definitely come back to this, circle back to mental health and boundaries. If you take anything from this episode and actually implement it, please let me know. Send me an email, DM me on Instagram. I cannot wait to hear. I hope you all have a fabulous day, and I'll see you in the next episode.